If I told you strange creatures live amongst us, will you believe? Movies portray creatures of all kinds, and I wonder where this inspiration comes from. Today's story covers one of such sightings, but if you're joining me for the first time and you love the true, dark, and scary stories, you have just found the right channel. Welcome to the Dark Past, where I'll be bringing you one or two stories every week. So please just sit back, relax, and enjoy today's story. This is the true story of Kate Williams and his wife Diane. Between 1981 and 1982, the couple moved to London, Ohio with their 4-year-old daughter, Raven. It was a typical, peaceful, small town. Shortly after moving in, one night while Kate was away at night school, Diane was in the kitchen doing dishes and putting Raven to sleep. Diane started feeling like she was being watched. As she peeked out the window, she noticed two golden eyes staring at her. This startled her as she thought to herself, what kind of dog could this be, as it was tall to her height? She then decides to move to another room so she could have a better view of it. The thought of how tall the dog was kept lingering in her mind. She couldn't get this thought out of her head and decided to take another look. She kept her eyes on the tree line, which was about 20 feet away. She saw a human head with golden eyes slowly appeared right in front of her, staring right back at her. She quickly left the window, and at that moment she heard the sound of a vehicle coming up the driveway. She was full of fear. Suddenly, it opened the door and she was filled with relief. She told Kit everything that had happened. He rushed out of the property to see what had scared his wife, but he found nothing on their property. He convinced her that it was just an animal in the woods and not to worry. A month passes by. Diane was alone with Raven again. Everything seemed normal until she decided to look out the kitchen window while doing dishes and noticed that same pair of glowing eyes slowly rising up from the edge of the window. She backed up, thinking it was an intruder. She immediately ran around the house, turning off all the lights. When she did this, all the internal reflection disappeared. She noticed a tall figure with glowing eyes standing right in front of her window. She then calls 911. When the police got there and searched the property, they couldn't find anything. Not long after, Kit arrives home. He wasn't happy with Diane calling the police. He believed it was some kind of animal or Diane was just homesick. The police told Diane that if anything like this happens again, she should give them a call. 4 months passed. Things went back to normal. Then, late in December, after the very first snowstorm, Kit woke up early in the morning and decided to go pick up some fresh donuts for the family before they woke up. He got into his car, turned it on, and left it idle due to the cold weather, then adjusted his rearview mirror. That's when he noticed someone standing behind his car. He immediately got out of his car and started looking around for whoever he had seen behind his car. He was now thinking to himself, had his wife been right all along? He found prints all around the front of his house. The print disappeared right at the front of his door and onto his roof. He walked to the back of his house and there were no footprints around there. Keith called his friend Dennis, who didn't live far away from him, and told Dennis about all the things that had been going on since they moved in, telling him to bring along his hunting rifle. Both men were excellent hunters. Dennis arrives. Kit was already armed, and as both men were talking, they suddenly heard a loud stomp as if something landed at the other end of the building. They ran around the house to see what it was, and when they got there, they noticed that whatever jumped off the back of the house landed 20 feet away in the middle of the yard from the house, which was not possible for any human to do. Both men stared at each other in shock. Kit found footprints of the intruder in the snow, which measured 14 inches long. This creature was bipedal. That is, it walked on 2 feet with long legs. Kit and his friend decided to investigate more by following the prints to wherever it leads. As they followed it, they could hear in the distance something moving in the woods ahead of them. The footprints led to a small cabin in a clearing in the middle of the woods, which they said they had never seen before. The footprints disappeared right in front of the door leading into the cabin. They started shouting and banging on the door for who or whatever was in the cabin to come out, saying, "We know you are in there, so you better come out right now." He then thought to himself that this really looks bad. He explained to his friend that they had to go because they were in front of someone's cabin, guns in hand, and yelling out for them to come out. If someone sees them, they will think otherwise. So they left. They walked out of the woods, and Kit went to a payphone and called his dad to come pick them up. When his dad arrived, Kit explained all that had been going on to his father. His father said he knows who lives in the cabin, that it was this older man named George who worked at the town's tire shop. Dennis and Kit decided to go to the tire shop with a beat-up tire just to see who or what George looks like. When they got to the tire shop with the bad tire, the front clerk calls out for George, saying, "Hey George, come out here and get this tire fixed." When George stepped out from the back, he froze for a minute because he could recognize the men standing right in front of him, and they too knew this was the man stalking Kit's property. He was this old-looking man with distinctive golden eyes who no one would ever believe could jump off the top of a house and land 20 feet away in the middle of the yard. When he was done with the tire, he just rolled it out, not coming out from the back, because he knew that they had found him out and didn't want to confront them anymore. Months passed, and there were no more incidents at Kit's home. Then one morning, Dennis arrives at Kit's home and tells him he wants to show him something. As they drove down the road, Kit knew where they were heading and tells Dennis he doesn't want to go there. Then Dennis tells him that old George had passed away and now was the perfect time for them to go take a look at the cabin. When they arrived, there was a cop car over there. Dennis realizes he knows the police officer, then walks up to him and explains all that happened in the past. At first, the police officer was reluctant to let them go in, but he later agreed and told them there is something strange about old George and his cabin. When they stepped into the cabin, there was nothing in it except for a small table and a wooden chair. Both Keith and Dennis asked the officer if this was the oddness he bent, and he said no. Walking to a curtain on the wall, pulled it open, and behind it was a metal door. As he opened the door, they were hit with this strong odor that smelled like wet dog, and inside, all around the walls, were plated steel with attached chains in the middle of the room. And on the plated wall were scratches of claws marks, both old and new. Keith and Dennis knew they were looking at some kind of chamber of a werewolf. Ever since then, when George passed, there had never been any more disturbances at Keith's home. What do you guys think? Could this be a werewolf or what? I believe is a werewolf, but I would like to know what your thoughts are below in the comment section. That brings us to the end of today's story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to give it a like and share it, which encourages me to bring you more interesting stories like this from around the world. I don't know what media you are watching this with, but you can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And please do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. Thank you. See you next time and bye for now.